Hello, welcome to Tales from the World's Firesides. I'm Clive Gilson, the story guy, and welcome also to the first tale for 2026. Before we start, I'd like to thank the 113,000 odd of you who've joined the channel over the last year or two. We really do appreciate the time you spend with us. Now, today we're picking up a story from Scotland, a traditional Scottish tale called The Death Bree, full of atmosphere and quite a lot of strange goings on in graveyards. Let's get on with the tale. The Death Bree. There was once a woman living at Camp Delmore in Strathaven, and one season something went wrong with the cattle. It wasn't just a cough, not just a limp, it was a sickness that swept through the byres and fields, the kind that folk would call a murrain, a wasting disease that moved from animal to animal and left them stiff and still by morning. She tried everything people swear by when they're frightened. The old fires, the blessed water, the little protections and half prayers. Nothing took. Day after day, more cattle went down. So she did what desperate people do. She went to the wise folk. They listened, they nodded, and then they told her this. This isn't natural, they said. This is something darker, and the only cure that never fails is the juice from a dead head lifted from the churchyard. A dead head from the graveyard, taken at midnight. Now this woman wasn't soft. She had a stout heart and a stubborn kind of faith. Still, she hesitated, though, not out of fear so much, not quite, but because a churchyard is a churchyard, and the dead should be left in peace. But the disease didn't care about delicacy. And when she saw that she might lose every last animal, she made her choice. She asked a neighbouring woman to come with her, and it took some persuading, but in the end she found a companion, and they set off just before midnight for the parish churchyard about 1.5 miles from her home. The path was dark, the air was cold, and the nearer they came, the quieter everything seemed. At the gate, her companion stopped. She took one look into the graveyard, and that was enough. She wouldn't go in. She said she'd wait there by the entrance until the job was done. The wife of Camp Delmore didn't argue. She just nodded and went on alone. She chose what she thought was an old grave, one that had settled and softened with time, and she set down her spade and she started to dig. It was heavy work. The ground fought her, but she kept going, steady and grim, until she struck what she'd come for. A skull. She lifted it, ready to take it, and then a voice spoke from the dark, hollow and wild, like wind coming through a ruin. "This is my head. Leave it alone." She froze. Then, very carefully, she put the skull back. All right. You can almost hear her thinking this. We won't quarrel over that. She reached for another skull. "That is my father's head." She didn't answer. She put it back and took up a third. "That is my grandfather's head." By now her patience was thinning. She'd come a long way, she dug hard, her cattle were dying at home, and she was not in the mood to be ordered about by unseen claimants. She turned into the darkness and snapped back, "Well, even if it's your grandmother's head, you're not getting it back until I'm finished with it." That did it. The ghost lurched up, furious, in clothes that sat oddly on him, as if he'd been buried in a hurry. "What did you say, you limmer?" And then again, louder, shaking with rage. "What did you say, limmer? By my great oath, you'd best leave my grandfather's head." Now, the wife of Camp Delmore was brave, but she wasn't foolish, and she could hear in that voice the sort of anger that doesn't end with shouting. So she changed her tone. She told him the truth, plainly. She explained the sickness in her cattle, the remedies that had failed, the advice she'd been given, and what she needed the skull for, just for a little while, just long enough to make the cure. And then she promised, on her word, that she would bring it back. The ghost listened. They argued a little, but they came to terms. In the end, he agreed to let her take his grandfather's skull, but only on one condition. Bring it back before cockcrow, or pay for it. She left the graveyard fast, the skull bundled tight, her mind already racing with what she had to do next. And that's when she remembered her companion. She went to the gate and found her collapsed on the ground, white-faced and limp, as if the very sound of the quarrel had knocked the breath out of her. She'd heard the ghost's threats, imagined herself dragged into it, and fainted clean away. The wife of Camp Delmore stared at her, half angry, half resigned, because time was short. There were not even 2 hours until cockcrow. So she did the only thing she could. She hefted her companion onto her back and carried her up a steep rise to the nearest house. She hammered on the door, got the woman inside, left her there for the night, and then turned and ran. She raced home, and there by firelight she made what the old tale calls the Bree, a dark broth, pressed juice drawn from the dead skull, the cure that should never fail. She worked fast, because she could already imagine the sound of a cock crowing in the distance and the ghost waiting at the grave. When the Bree was ready, she used it on her cattle. Then she wrapped the skull again and ran back the way she'd come. She returned the skull to its place, she smoothed the earth, she set the grave as it had been, as if no hand had ever touched it. And she did all of that before cockcrow. And here, the old story gives her a reward. The cattle recovered quickly, the sickness loosened its grip, and as long as she kept even a little of that Bree, other illnesses in the byre did not last long. 5. And that's the tale, The Death Bree. It's a tale that really sort of reveals a story about a woman who would not watch her livelihood die without a fight, even if the fight took her into a graveyard at midnight. I think it's a really atmospheric and rather a special little tale. If you'd like to find out more about these tales and maybe read a few that are collected in some of the books that I collect and edit, then there's a link at the bottom of the screen. You can find my books, including Tales from the Land of the Brave, on Amazon and at all good bookstores. If you want to find out a little bit more about me, Clive Gilson, then please go to clivegilson.com. I'm always happy to connect and to have a chat if you've got anything you want to talk about. Other than that, though, thanks for listening, for spending your time with me yet again. It's always appreciated, and I'll see you next time. Take care.